educate yourself. Don't be scared to ask people. Ask educated people.
Yeah.
Not Betty, the master gardener.
Yeah.
She took a 2-month course at the local community college, and she's all of a sudden a plant scientist.
Yeah, they're glad to take your money.
Yeah, exactly. And they'll tell you anything. And you know how it is. I mean, it's easy to sell people on something that's not true. I don't like to ever do that, because when it doesn't work, you know, I've got people say, I don't care if you're saying it won't work. I want you to do this because, and I say, well, I'm not doing that, because I'm not going to take your money and it be wrong even if you say it's okay.
You know, 99% of businesses fail in the first year. And so then when you hit one, you've been in it 20 plus years, like you got a handle on what's going on. What's up, bro?
Hey, TJ.
Yeah.
Long time no see.
I know, man. I'm glad to have you here, man. So take it just a second and tell everybody kind of who you are and what all you're doing.
So my name's Ben Harrison from Woodruff native, famously unknown. And anyway, just do a bunch of different stuff. You know, known TJ for how long?
Forever.
10, 12 years. Yeah. And just always been in the business world doing different things, trying. Picked a bunch of low profit businesses, but making them work.
Yeah, man.
Add them up and they amount to something.
That's what we was talking about before we jumped on here. Just like the lens of running business and people misunderstanding it. But one thing you've been doing for a long time is your Harrison's Landscaping.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah. So I grew up in a family of business owners. Dad had a construction company, and I did that with him in the summers and got stuck flagging traffic one summer, and that was the final straw for me. I said, this is not for me. So went and got a job with a landscape company and just fell in love with that and the passion for outdoors, being outside plants. And so went to college for 2 years for landscape design and graduated with that, and then went back for 2 more years for sports turf management just to get, further knowledge in turf. And in the midst of all that, between those 2 degrees, started the landscape company. Just me and a buddy and a truck and a trailer. And that's kind of where it all started.
Yeah. And then you've grown it to a business that's been, how long have you been in that now?
I guess 22 years, maybe longer. I'm 43, started it at 19, so yeah, whatever that math.
Yeah, I tried to do math the other day on the podcast, and everybody was roasting me in the comments. So I'm gonna skip that part. But it was cool because 99% of businesses fail in the first year, and so then when you hit one, you've been in it 20 plus years. Like you got a handle on what's going on. But specifically the landscaping, and like one thing that I think a bunch of people that kind of watch this, and you get into new construction, you're going through the process of building, Some people want to put landscaping into their budget and have, minor things done. If we build spec builds, we come in and we hydroseed or turf, and then we put out some stuff, and like there's a whole assembly of building your home. And so, we handle a lot of pre-construction stuff. We come in and do the rough grading. We muck out and build the pads, and we construct the home, put it in your driveway. But we kind of leave that last piece in the homeowner's hands of like, hey, some people, like I say, will roll it into us, and we'll contact a landscaper, build the package, and then oversee the installation. But a lot of people, like that's something they don't think about a lot, and they're managing their budget, and they're trying to put as much into sticks and bricks as they can because they want as much space as they can get, and the wife's wanting the upgrades and tile and all the bathroom, and they're never thinking about landscape and how all that plays into water management and different things, and a maintenance side. We when we bought our house, when we moved back here from Utah, like we moved in, and there was all these beautiful plants and stuff for the first year, and then they all went away because I'm not going to maintain that. Like that's not something I'm passionate about. Now Nick Mann's our director of construction. He's growing all these whatever kemosabe maple trees and all this stuff. Like he's into it. He loves it. That's his passion, not me. And so I met with a landscape architect and was like, I want it to look beautiful and be maintenance free. And so he built all this stuff. And so we slowly started adding things back in that I don't have to maintain. That looks pretty much year round.
Right.
But from your perspective, somebody's building a home. And they're going to have, we're building a lot in the Southeast. We've got different clay types, but I'd say 70% of what we do is in this beautiful red clay.
Right. Yeah.
And they move in, and then now they have this yard that they need to manage. Like, what's some tips you could give to of a way to think through it, and like things that over time that you're not going to have to redo over and over again?
So, yeah, and what you said, that's the number one thing I get when I go to do a preliminary design meeting. First thing people say is, I want a lot of color and no maintenance. Well, there's no such thing.
That's right.
And so what I tell people is, that's like saying I want to pay for the Kia, but I want the Cadillac. That doesn't work.
Right.
So, the big thing with homeowners, one is educate yourself. And that can be just conversations with people that know what they're doing. And number two, don't look at, Southern Living magazine. That's bad. I have so many people that you go meet with the wife and she rolls out this $1 million landscape. And I'm like, not only do you don't have the money to maintain that landscape for a month, much less put it in, so just unrealistic goals. I'm sure you see that. Somebody brings a Barndo plan to you that's a $2 million plan, say, well, can you do this? Well, yeah, we could, but, the bank ain't going to go for that.
That's correct.
So it's just educating yourself, whether it be through, there's a lot of good and bad info on the internet, but a lot of really good info. So knowing where to start. And like you're saying, if you're dealt a blank slate, keep in mind when you're building a house, what you said, upgrades are going to eat it. We're the last guys in.
Yep.
So that $40,000 landscape budget's now 20.
Yep.
But they want all of the same. So to me, I tell people, you can't, again, you can't get, when you go buy a car, you pay for the base model. You don't go in after you've paid for the base model and say, hey, I want the rims and the hopped up radio or whatever. Yeah. You're going to get the base model. Like, that doesn't work. So what I tell people, be realistic, plan for the landscape. You're going to eat into some of that because, like you say, she wants the fancy sink or whatever. Yep. And next thing you know, your budget's half of what it was. So, and keeping it simple, I tell people all the time, when you're planning on a landscape, draw it out, but you got to know plant form and function. You can't go to Lowe's and say, well, this plant in the pot's smaller than that one, so the big one would go in the back. Well, that plant in the back might be almost full grown in that 3-gallon pot, maxed out at 2x2.
Yeah.
And that one in the front is a plant that's meant to grow 20 feet tall.
Yeah.
So you've got to know plant form and how it's going to work. So I tell people, take that canvas, take your blueprint, draw out your beds however you want them, do it to scale, and then, get you a scale template and a scale ruler, just real simple. Anybody can do that. And all right, so that plant is expected to be a 10-foot wide, say a little gem magnolia. It's going to grow 10 feet wide. Well, I want that on the corner. Well, don't plant it if it's going to grow 10 feet wide. Simple math, don't plant it 3 feet off the wall.
Right.
Or you're 2 feet into the wall at full grown. So just knowing those things, you see bad installs all the time, with people just not knowing plant material. You see it with landscapers. I go by and go, man, that's a bad one. And then some people don't know, like I referenced little gem magnolia. We put them on houses all the time. They're a perfect plant. They've got the brown, the green. The texture's great. You never prune them. And they grow 10 feet wide and 15 feet tall, and they stop. Well, I get other landscapers that kind of exposes to what they don't know. They'll call me and go, man, I can't believe you put a Southern Magnolia on the corner of that house. That thing's going to grow 30 feet wide. And I'm like, nope, not that one.
Yeah.
So just knowing plant material is a good thing. And then on the grass side, where you see a lot of people screw it up is they don't know. Like, don't watch the Scott's Lawn commercials. That's all played up. Those fancy bags aren't paid for by the government. They're paid for by the consumer. So you got to know what you're putting out. What's hilarious to me on the turf side, and we see it this time of year, you'll start seeing commercials drop, fertilize your lawn now, weed and feed your lawn now.
Yeah.
Spring weeds are popping up. Your grass is still flat dog dormant.
Yep.
It's not doing anything. It's asleep. But you're weeding, putting out this granular post-emerge that's sticking to the leaves of these weeds, but you're feeding nothing. It's like if you're asleep and I set a plate of food on top of you, you don't eat it.
Right.
It does you no benefit. So there's just a lot of bad they cater all these ads and all this stuff to a general. They're catering to the whole East Coast or the entire country when we're in all these different plant zones and have different requirements. So, again, asking people that know and don't follow what the commercial says. You got to know your your turf type. You see it in the spring. It trips me out to go in April. Spring sprung, and you've got Jimmy's at the cash register, and he's got 18 bags of lime for his half-acre lot, and he's pumped. He thinks, I'm gonna have the best looking yard in the neighborhood. We're about to get it. And then what he doesn't realize is he's just throwing his pH, lime adjust pH. His pH may be perfect. So I'm like, all that work and that money, have you done a soil sample?
Right.
What's a soil sample?
Yeah.
I'm supposed to lime my lawn every spring. That's totally false,
Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, no, it's and another thing is lime in the form they're buying at Lowe's takes 6 months to correct pH. So if it's a warm season turf like Bermuda, they put it out in April or May, it doesn't correct till on into the fall, and then you're dormant,
Right.
And then the pH holds good through dormancy, and then it reverts back and goes sideways again by spring. So, you see a lot of that, and that's just people not knowing.
Well, hey, I would say 100%. You need to talk to somebody that knows what's going on.
Yep.
And then from the flip side of it is this: is like I think a lot of people come to the table and they think that like they got to get it all done at once. And the thing is like, and I've had this conversation with several people. You're moving into your home, just like when we talk about upgrades in a home. There's some things that we do differently at Barndo. Like we our base package for a barndominium build is complete spray foam encapsulation. And we do that because we know that that's the best system. And so we just build that into the rough cost because a lot of people would not upgrade to that and then go in and upgrade their bath or their kitchen. But like you're never going to get to re-insulate your home. Yeah, it's not going to happen. There's never going to be a time where you're like, you know what I was thinking? We should just rip all the drywall down or just re-insulate the house to get it. No, you're not. You're never going to do it. And so we try to like lean into that to where, with a base package, our standards are so good that we've upgraded most of the exterior finishes. We got a super low maintenance exterior because predominantly steel exterior. All that stuff's got amazing paint quality and warranty behind it. The insulation that's maintaining the climate in the house and keeps your utility bills at bay. And so we're thinking through all that. But I tell people all the time, like, hey, that's cool that you don't have the money to do all the upgrades you want and make everything look how you want it and do, but you're going to live in this home 5, 10, 15, 20, maybe 50 years.
Yep.
Like I promise you're going to remodel that bathroom. You're going to remodel your kitchen. You're going to change your flooring. You're going to repaint. You're going to do those things across the course of time, but
Right.
You're never going to go back and redo the fundamentals.
Yep.
And so like, I think same with landscaping, they see those Southern Living magazines, right? And they see all this stuff, and like I laugh at it too because my wife does that, right? Like,
Right.
And I'm like, hey, that's great, like I was saying when we were meeting with the designers, the preliminary plan they put out looked beautiful. They had all the 3D renderings, all the stuff, and I was like, that's great. I don't have a $200,000 staff that's going to come in and maintain this,
Right.
it ain't the governor's mansion. Like I don't have landscaping staff to keep all this up. Like I can't commit to this. And I think having a good base. So like someone moves in, you may put some beds on the front, and like there's advantages to it because you're controlling water, right? And so, 9 times out of 10, you're going to have gutters on your house. Some people don't put gutters, and that's fine. It's not required, but you want to control water away from the house as best as possible. So you get into guttering, and like if you don't have gutters, then you definitely need something, put something that can handle water shedding off onto it constantly. But from a maintenance standpoint, right?
Right.
Because half your business is coming in maintaining other people's lawns, and so like you want it set up to where you can maintain that thing, and you got a system down. It keeps the cost down to the consumer. Your time on job is less.
Yep.
It's not a bunch of crazy this
Plant
and that,
material, yep.
like what. So a base package, somebody's getting ready to go, like in your perspective, we just built your house and you're like, I don't care about the design as much as I care about getting a solid foundation what would be your recommendation?
So, well, just what you said. First and foremost, like everybody wants to talk about plants because that's what looks good and that's the color. And gutters are 10,000 times more important than plants.
Yeah.
You know, when somebody says, "Well, we don't want to do the spray foam. We just want to roll insulation because that would eat into our landscape budget." I'm here as a landscaper to tell you do the foam insulation.
Yeah.
You know, and then other things I tell people too, we're a big advocate for outdoor lighting. We do a ton of outdoor lighting. And I'm like, you know, instead of landscaping your house 360 and trying to make your backyard this oasis, I said 98% of the people see your house if it's visible from a road passing by. So corner to corner, you know, just do the bare minimal there, like curb appeal, first and foremost, and then do the outdoor lighting. It's the one service we provide that nobody's ever came back to me and said, "Man, I wish I wouldn't have done that."
Yeah.
It's everybody's favorite thing. So people are going, "Well, what would you do?" And they want irrigation, which is irrigation's great out of the gate to start a landscape. And I'm like, get rid of the irrigation. Don't do the irrigation. Like, let Mother Nature do its thing. You know, it's nice to have it. I've got, obviously, at my house, an elaborate irrigation system. It's been turned on for 1 month when I first moved in. Got that $600 water bill, never turned it on since. You know, it's good to have that control, but, you know, I'm like, no, don't do the irrigation, you know, do the lighting, the infrastructure. You know, when I was in landscape design school, it was form and function, you know, and function precedes form. You know, function being you don't come into your garage, into your master bedroom and walk through that to the kitchen for a reason. So in a landscape, you know, you think that same way, like make spaces make sense, you know, to where you're not, you know, you don't have this lavish garden over here. You don't put a herb garden beside your front door. You know, you put a specimen type tree. You're drawing everything landscape design related to draw attention to the front door. Front door is the focal point. So everything, you know, kind of framing corners, you know, so if you've got this big open field to the right of your house, not screening it with a row of trees, just a tree or two will bounce eyes back toward the house.
Right.
And then as you get closer to the front door, you're seeing nicer, you know, plants. And, you know, that's how I draw houses in sections and say, all right, here's the main section. So we're fancier here. When you get out to these outskirts or these sidewalls, you know, then you're just doing something to soften the hard corners.
Right.
But something that you don't put a really colorful plant down the side of your house and a bunch of green, nothing up in the front. So but I would say your question was, you know, about what were you saying? Just like the
basics. I'll give you a more pointed question. We're in the Southeast, okay, and we build in a plethora of areas. So we're like, you know, Eastern Tennessee, all across Western to Eastern North Carolina, and we build from the coast, Charleston, all the way back up to the upstate. And, you know, someone's moving in and, you know, they're getting their keys this time of year or around spring and they're trying to establish grass. What would be your recommendation?
Well, if on the turf side, again, soil sample, first thing you got to do. You don't know. So what people don't understand about soil is it's got a pH level. That's a body chemistry. So, for example, we're males.
Yep.
If we take what's a female pill? Estrogen pill.
Yep.
We can take that and our body tries to do its thing and goes, we don't need that. You waste it out.
Yep.
Whereas a female, same way, takes a drug for a male. You know, there's just so what people don't understand is like if you're pH hitting right, then fertilizer does the same thing. Seed does the same thing. It's just rejected. You know, it'll take up that fertilizer and go, okay, can't use this, and spit it right back out. You know, it just leaches off. So soil sample, if you're trying to establish turf, soil sample first. And some people say, well, I'm doing sod. I'm bringing in 2 inches of good dirt and then grass. I don't need that. That's true. You can lay sod on this floor and water it, and it'll grow within that 2 inches. The problem is those roots are penetrating what's below it, so it's important to have it cultivated right and all that to, you know, in the dirt below it, because, you know, deep roots, like, you know, top growth and quality of turf is directly related to how good that root system is in anything.
Right.
So just making sure your soil pH is right. And then if you're establishing by seed, that's a whole different animal. Timing's huge.
So this episode is sponsored by the Barndo Co. You can visit us online at thebarndoco.com and get started building your dream barndominium today. We specialize in build on your lot turnkey barndominium solutions. We have a whole gallery of plans that you can explore through. You can also go full custom route. You can get in touch with us through the website by filling out the contact us form, and one of our Barndo professionals will reach out to you, get your dream started today. For us specifically, like we build on, a variety of lots. Like we build a barn in downtown Spartanburg,
Right.
Right off Main Street. Like it's on a 1/10 of an acre lot. Great sod application, right?
Yep.
But we're building a lot on, Bob and Mary got 100 acres and they're carving out a couple acres. And so people are moving into homes and they've got anywhere from 2 to 10 acres of management. And some of it, has not been really impacted, but that typically you're looking at anywhere from an acre to 2 or 3 acres that have been disturbed, open soil, where we've had to push dirt off or taper down from establishing a build site. And so we run into the case where it's generally speaking a large area they're trying to establish something on. And so we end up with a lot of people that are throwing seed and straw or occasionally, come in and hydro seed depending on time of year again. But like, any advice there?
Well, no, again, timing is everything in establishing by seed. You've got to be in the right window. You can't put, a cool season grass like fescue. People think, well, I need to do it in the spring. Well, fescue is not native to our areas. It hates 100-degree heat. Can it grow here? Yes. We're fortunate enough for it to grow here. The places you see with big stands of it, like the front of BMW, that is tens upon hundreds of thousands of dollars spent every year to keep that grass looking like that. It's under perfect irrigation, perfect feeding. So knowing, once you get grass established, people think, all right, that's it. My grass is growing. It's doing great, but you've got to fertilize it. It's kind of like us. It's like in fertilizer, what people don't understand about fertilizer programs, and this is where you got to be educated, is there's certain times of a year. And I've learned some of this stuff the hard way. People say, well, I put all this seed out in the spring, and then they also followed the Scott's commercial and went and got a pre-emerge. Well, pre-emerge forms an invisible layer for nothing to emerge. It doesn't. So they've suppressed all their seed. That's something I've seen happen. That's like, no, that was bad.
Yeah.
Very counterproductive. But just knowing the fertilizer steps, people, what they don't understand about fertilizers, like it'd be like me and you sitting down saying, TJ, we're ultra busy next week. So let's just get all the food we're going to eat for the week, and let's just eat it all right now. Yeah. Can we intake all that food? No, we can't. Yep. We can intake 4 meals, and then we're going to be over here throwing up. But our body can only intake so much, and plants are, a living organism just like people. So you can't just say, you see it again at Lowe's in the spring, Billy's got his cart full of fertilizer. He's pumped. We're about to get real green. Yeah. And I'm not going to do fertilizer every month and a half like it says. I'm going to do it all at one time. That way we don't have to worry about it. Doesn't work like that.
Right.
You can do more damage if you overdo it. But then again, once that grass takes up so much, it might look great out of the gate, and the rest of that fertilizer as it's burning off, and it's just leaching out.
Yeah.
So again, just kind of knowing timing, establishing by seed in your situation, timing's everything. Hydro seed versus seed and straw. People ask that. They're essentially the same thing. Yep. Hydro seed was built for utility purposes on roadsides. Yep. It was never intended to be a residential form of spraying grass. Well, all it has is a tackifier in it and this paper mache and a green dye. So it sprays and it's green, but you've seen hydro seed and y'all do it, and the green's gone.
Yep.
That's just
it's a mess thing. Too if you ain't paying attention.
And you get an initial water application. The water that's coming out with that seed is not enough to germinate that seed, right, so to speak. So I'm more of an advocate for seed and straw, and the reason being is if you got a good base in the seed kind of settles within that cultivated soil. When you put the straw out, when it rains, it retains moisture. So not too heavy. People do sometimes straw too heavy, and you're just completely shading out the seed. But it retains that water, so it just kind of is like a amphibious, just perfect environment for the seed. And people think straw strictly for the runoff, and that's correct too. Anything will run off, hydro seed or seed and straw. If you get enough rain or downpour, like a storm like Helene, Two bad situations, your straw can blow away. And then enough rain, it's channeling it up under hydroseed or seed. So
Yep.
there's no real right or wrong, just knowing rates. People sometimes either put out too much or not enough. So they see and they think, well, I put out, it's like, how many pounds per thousand did you put out? They have no idea.
Yeah.
Well, I put out 2 bags or whatever on their half-acre lot. And
Yeah.
you do the math and, like if it's a new seed rate for fescue, say we're going at 15 pounds per thousand. Well, if you put out 5, that's not enough.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you get, somebody this overly aggressive, and as in anything, well, I'm going to overdo it. You can't put too much seed. Yeah, you can put too much seed too, because now you've just got this coverage of seed. Now everybody's fighting for the same space. Seed's growing on top of seed. So I'm trying to set a root, and you're a seed on top of me. You're trying to find a way around me to set a root. And if we both set roots, now we're fighting for the same food, the same light, the same water, all those things. So again, educate yourself. Don't be scared to ask people. Ask educated people.
Yeah.
Not Betty, the master gardener.
Yeah.
She took a 2-month course at the local community college, and she's all of a sudden a plant scientist, because she knows how her azaleas look good to the public, or her crepe myrtles look good. Like, that's not enough. Ask a educated landscaper, and there's a lot of uneducated landscapers too. Don't ask.
Yeah, they're glad to take your money.
Yeah, exactly. And they'll tell you anything. And you know how it is. I mean, it's easy to sell people on something that's not true. I don't like to ever do that, because when it doesn't work, I've got people say, I don't care if you're saying it won't work. I want you to do this because, and I say, well, I'm not doing that, because I'm not going to take your money and it be wrong, even if you say it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, we're not going to do wrong.
So I guess wrap this piece together would be, we're turning out houses on a monthly rate, right? January through December, we're pumping out 20 houses a month, complete, people moving in all times of year, different things like that. And again, predominantly Southeast, so we don't have brutal winters. But if somebody was to move in like in an off time of year to establish it, what do you think your advice to them would be? Like, hey, do I need to go out there and put out the winter rye and all that to get something going, or what?
Yeah.
What would be your perspective?
Well, so say one of your customers is moving in October, but they want ultimately to work towards warm season Bermuda grass. You built it in the middle of a field. That's what's native there is coming back.
Yep.
So you've got no trees, and they say, well, what they'll say to you is, well, I want Bermuda, but if I seed Bermuda now, it's not going to germinate, so it's just sitting there. That's not good. You don't want to seed Bermuda in October and just let it sit, because it's not going to germinate because of temperature, so it could rot, essentially, or just wash away because it's just sitting there waiting on timing to be right. And then they say, but you're telling me fescue in the summer is going to die. So, what you do in that situation, what I tell people, if you're in that fall situation, do the fescue at a light rate, not the full seed rate, and do a ryegrass. Rye will grow in the cracks of this floor right here. It'll grow in the back of your truck. It's so easy. And it looks like, make you look like Augusta National.
Yeah.
You'll be the envy of the neighborhood for about 3 months.
Yeah.
So, get that rye fescue something going. I tell people this, I'm like, don't put out preems. We want growth. I don't care if it's crabgrass, dandelions, ragweed, whatever. We just want green and growing, because what happens is, even if it's a weed, which weeds grow in much easier environments, and it's growing, as it sets roots, that's aerifying the soil. As it dies, as you kill it later on, it decomposes and turns into, it's better than letting these hard pans form. Some people will say, well, I want to see Bermuda in the spring. I'm not doing anything. They're going to leave it red dirt, just like you left the grade. That's bad, because weeds are going to start popping up. It's going to look terrible. And then all these hard pans form, and you've got to recultivate.
Yep.
So spend the money, get the fescue, and you don't have to really spray that out. Now you've got a natural straw in place. You've got a pretty good stand rolling into April.
Right.
And then you put out your Bermuda seed. You don't have to straw again. You did that the first go round. So now your grass that's dying, and you're going to look like crap. And, typically that may, sometimes if it's an annual rye around Easter, it's lights out. And I mean, you'll wake up one day and you look like Augusta National. Fun fact, which is why they play the Masters when they do.
Yep.
Is because of that. The ryegrass is at peak at that time of year. So they're using a perennial rye. And then another fun fact: the year of COVID, the masters got delayed. Well, they were like they did it in October because they needed that month of ryegrass to kick in, because Augusta doesn't look great in those summer months.
Right.
So just again, and if you're on the adverse, say you're coming into the spring and you say, well, I don't want to put out ryegrass, like, because I'm not going to get but a month of it, and you're saying it's going to die. I don't like to do it, but you can put brown top millet. It's utility grass. It's for Dovetail. It grows 2 feet a week. It's terrible, but again, it's something green. Tell people, put your Bermuda out, mix it with a little millet. The millet's just to get something green and growing that you can cut. When millet dies and when annual rye dies, it's not coming back.
Right.
Like, it's a one cycle and it's out. So you don't have to worry about, well, I don't want to fight millet for the rest of my life trying to get rid of it. It'll kill itself. Right. So fescue rye, fall combination, millet, Bermuda at spring. And then in the summer, still I would still do that millet, or in the fall still do that rye, just
right.
getting something green and growing.
Yep.
And then you can always, as you get the Bermuda, if that's what you're after, to germinate, which is what 90% of people have here, from here all the way down to the coast. So, once you have that, you can eradicate that other stuff.
Yeah,
through
well, that's
fertilizer
what I think the perspective is like, you're right. All the stuff is like, you got to prevent the weeds, and really you need to establish something and then go backwards and eliminate the things you don't want.
It is. Yeah. Like, weeds are a cancer. It's like cancer in our body. And what people don't understand about this, so say they're 3 years into their house and they're like, all right, well, now everything's green and growing, but I've got weeds everywhere. So now you're saying go aggressive on this weed control. And then they start to go backwards because, like chemo does to our body, it attacks cancer, makes us sick in the process. Weed control's the same way. And too much of it can really hurt you. But I tell people, all right, you're 60% weeds, 40% Bermuda turf that's in patches here and here. Keep this in mind when they sign up for a fertilizer program. They want everything to just be on the up. I say, we're getting rid of 60% of your grass over the course of 3 months, in these apps. So you're gonna look worse before you look better, and patience. You got to be patient, but you got to stay on it. And people think that preems or whatever are the answer. It's kind of like people that live by vitamins. My wife's one of those. She's, well, if I take this remedy and that, it will prevent this or that. And I'm like, you're right. It's got a chance to, and it might help you. You might not get as sick. It's kind of like the COVID thing. Like, there's things you can take that make you not get as sick, but at the same time, it's not an answer. Preems don't mean you're not going to have weeds.
Right.
Weather controls everything, and that's well beyond what we can do.
Yeah.
So you just you have a little bit of control with irrigation. Irrigation's great. Irrigation's expensive to run. It's expensive to install. It can be expensive to maintain if you have problems. It's just one of those things. I tell people, just kind of let the rain do its thing. So be patient.
Yep.
And let, you over time, you can get you a good, if you're not comfortable, weed control programs aren't that expensive, especially if you're talking about an acre of grass.
Yep.
It seems expensive per visit, and then you add it up per year, and it's like less than taxes would be on your motorcycle,
right.
And so pick your battles. If that's an issue, do you want good grass? Do you care? The good thing about once you get to that point and you're really suppressing those weeds is Bermuda, once you get it to a pure form of, say, Bermuda, fescue, whatever, it's all growing at the same rate. What makes grass look bad week to week? And people say, man, I've had to cut my grass twice this week. And I say, well, that's because your grass is in terrible shape, and there's 14 different species of all this stuff. So they're all growing at different rates.
That's right.
So that's what makes you look bad.
Man, that's how you know you've been doing this for 20 something years. Cause like the answers are like laser focused. This is gold.
Right.
I'm excited, but it makes it even funner for me. Cause like the second thing I want to talk about is like, yeah, you've been doing this for 20 something years, but outside of that, like the other commonality here is you're a serial entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Kind of like me, people look at me, they're like, who knows what TJ's got going on
next,
and that's what we were cutting up when we come here. I was like, so what all you do now, man? Because
it's funny because people ask that, and people I hadn't seen in a while, they say, I heard you were doing this or that. And then I've gotten the comment, everything you touch turns to gold. And I say, that's so untrue. First of all, I picked a lot of businesses that have worked that don't make a lot of money. But again, like I said earlier, you pile that together, it's good and it's comfortable. But as far as, what I got going and all, it all kind of stemmed, off of landscape. When I started landscape at 19, that business grew within a couple years to where I had these employees. And then in the winter, there was nothing to do. So I wasn't going to pay them to do nothing. So once trucks are clean and this and that, and then I started buying the old junky buildings, that everybody told me I was crazy.
Yeah.
Especially downtown Woodruff, and so I was buying those right and left. And the only reason I was buying them, I enjoyed fixing them up. I love old buildings, but they had old plaster and old everything. Like they were falling in. So we would take landscape guys in there and gut those. And then people say, well, how did you get into roll-off containers? Well, I was renting dumpsters. And then one day decided, I'm going to get my own. I'm going to get 5 of my own and do my own trash. And then that just kind of grew into a business. So, and on the adverse, once these buildings were renovated, turned around and rented them out. So that's where the rental stuff came from. So, yeah, the entrepreneur world isn't for everybody. Everybody's not geared for it. I get young guys that come to me and go, man, that's so cool. I want to start my own business. What advice can you give? And I say, get up early and go home late. My day starts before anybody that works for me. I'm the first one there and the last one to leave most every day. And but I've stayed small, not in a situation like where you've grown yours exponentially in a short amount of time. I've tried to keep it small because I've had a hard time. You do let control go, and that's a good thing. That's what's allowed you to grow Barndo so big. You're not nitpicking what Charleston's got going on today.
Yeah.
It's not your problem till it's a problem.
Right.
And that's great. With me, I've always tried to keep it small and just really been able to control, but nobody works for me.
The cool thing about a business ownership is if you know what you want, you're in control of creating it. And,
right.
and I think a lot of people get this, they see success and they see, like my wife, it gets these comments a lot because, we're in circles and, like our girls dance and they're in these new things and like new environments. We got new friends, and like they see in, they're like, wow, your husband owns a Barndo. Like, that's so cool. Like, he just had this idea and it was successful. And she's like, yeah, but do you know for 15 years and he had 1,700 of those ideas that were not successful?
That were not, yep.
And then like, and then a lot of times people don't see, you holding it together before it made it there. Like the sacrifice that comes in it. Time's a big sacrifice. Financially, it's a big sacrifice. And you're on the backside and everybody's like, man, that looks so cool, them buildings you're doing. And you're on the backside going like, I'm never going to financially recover from this.
You don't. And prime example is, if you look at some of the stuff I've done downtown and, for example, the little restaurant I own.
Yep.
That was just purely a fun thing. I wanted to own a stage. I was a musician. I said, I always want to own a venue and to be this super accommodating. It's like everything that sucks about being a gigging musician, I'm going to pull out of the equation. And it's taken notice by these musicians that are regional traveling artists come through and be like, man, you got it. Like, this is the dream all of small venue.
Yeah.
But people don't see that. And people, all they see is the stuff. They don't see the sleepless nights. I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm go make a list of what's got to be done. And the biggest thing too, employee-wise, you've got to, you've done a great job of it, of hiring good people, trusting them. You've got to trust them. And I've got some great employees. And then you go through what we call silly season, which is this hire and fire period where there's just a revolving door. And that's getting to be more and more of a challenge with, you've got all these plants popping up around here paying $20+ an hour.
Yeah.
Well, we can't pay those high premiums that a plant pays, like Milo's Tea versus Harrison Landscape. It's not going to happen. Like,
right.
The money isn't there. And if I did pay you that, we'd be out of business next year.
That's right.
So it's just finding employees that, kind of have a passion that can help you. And then I've got great leaders in each spot of all these businesses. So I'm still heavily involved every day with every one of them. But, I try to tell them, fix the small things on your own. Don't call me, crew leader, don't call me to tell me that this machine's tore up or that's tore up, call the mechanic, you know?
Yeah.
So, and I bet I have to say that, or my mechanic's name's John. I bet I say, call John 1,000 times a year. And that's the response, the 2-word response, call John. Because it's not, you know, like I can't do it all, but you know, just having, but the employees, you know, they do keep it together, and they've done, like, I've got some really good ones, and they're really committed to keeping it going. But it never stops, you know. When another challenge this day and age, you got a bunch of employees that are answering directly to you, then their problems become your problems. So I've got my own set of problems. That's what I tell my guys. My life's as screwed up as yours or anybody else's. I've got kids. We're going a million ways. They're getting sick just like your kids. My kids aren't invincible. I've got all these things going on, and I said, but now the fact that your problems now trickle into my world, because I've got to navigate what's happening with you as well. And that's a challenge of being a business owner, is that employees don't get. You know, sometimes I would love to punch in. I say I'd love to punch in, punch out. I've never done that, so I don't know how happy I would be doing that. It'd have to be with
you would hate it, but there is the fantasy of, I wish I could go and then I don't have to think about it till tomorrow.
Is. Well, everybody wants to. Everybody that asks me about my businesses and always goes, "Oh, this is so cool," and it always starts with the restaurant. The restaurant's so cool because it is cool. It's the coolest place. I built it like, if I can make a cool restaurant, this is it, and it's perfect, and it's very cool. But people want to talk about that, and you know, they don't want to talk about when they say, "What is your best business?" And I say, "Trash."
Yeah,
and I love trash, and I love hauling trash. I haul trash myself every day. People say, "What are you doing?" I say, you know, they think I'm doing something cool. I'm in the landfill, just dumping another load. And I love it. You know, I love, and here's what I've learned about trash. Not that I don't like a challenge the older I get, but with trash, nobody's mad about trash and nobody's excited about trash. Whereas in landscape, you can make people mad real easy by messing something up, or they're real excited about what you're doing for them, hardscape, landscape wise. In print, in my print company, everybody's excited. So I've tried to, you know, you're dealing with a lot of people's hobbies. So you're pumped, or even your business, you know, say we're doing hats for Barndo, you're pumped. I can't wait to get these hats. And so you're calling me every day. So there's this sense of urgency, you know, and in print, people say, you say, "I need those Barndo hats Friday." I say, "Right on. We got them sitting there Friday. You don't pick them up till 2 Fridays later." Because that excitement's worn off by that point. So that's a challenge in that. Trash, on the other hand, that's my goal in life. I would love to, not that I don't like to think and exercise my brain, but I love to get in a truck and I drive and I talk to my friends on the phone, and, you know, driving safely, obviously. But, you know, it's just easy because nobody's ever excited to see you come or excited to see you leave, you know, and they always pay. You know, there's no not a lot can go wrong between you and the customer. The worst thing you're worried about is SCDOT, police, and a flat tire or a blown motor, which you have those problems. But so anyway, life of running small businesses can be tough.
Well, what's fun for me is thinking back, like, you know, we were talking about how long we've been knowing each other now, and when I first met you, became friends, you were running the landscape business. You've always been into music, and you was starting the print shop. And I remember, and you were a single dude, and you had the hat, and like this fun for me talking about the meticulousness of like letting things go, because you were one of the most meticulous humans I've ever met in my life from everything. I remember at one point in time, I was doing ministry work and stuff like that. And my car blew up, and you let me borrow like an Explorer, and it was like not a new Explorer. But I remember getting in it, and I was like, "Oh,
this is cleaner than my new car."
I was like, I don't even want to put the seatbelt on because this is like a damn
it's perfect
off the lot. And you were like, just, you have such a meticulous detail of everything. Like, went to your house and your guitar collection, and like everything's just meticulous. And then now you look back, like, you know, 15 years later, you're married, you got kids, you're running multiple businesses. How has all that like impacted?
All that, yeah. So it was funny because that was my world. I dated a girl forever that I didn't marry, and you know, was with her for like 8 years. She did kind of part-time live with me. I could also tell her to go back to her mama's, you know, too. So that kind of, I still controlled my world. My friends made jokes like, hey, man, it's like cribs at your house. Like you open the fridge and it was beer, Gatorade, water, no food. And they're like, what do you eat? And I'm like, there's some cheese in the bottom and some bread. And we make garlic grilled cheeses, like that's what we lived on. And so, but, with that, everything was, I had full control of my world. And then I met my current wife, who's awesome, so she said the first time she ever stayed at my house, she looked over in my closet and she said, I thought you might have been a serial killer because it was not just color-coded pants, it was by material type. Like there's brown Carhartts to gray Carhartts, and then there's dark blue jeans to light blue jeans. So that was kind of the crazy, I had control of everything. And then I'll never forget, we'd been dating for like a month, and I got up to go to work, and her shoes were sitting in the den with a blanket just thrown on the floor because I'd gone to bed before her. And I went and woke her up, and I said, hey, I need you to, this shoe thing in the den doesn't work, and this blanket needs to be folded. Like, I can't go to work. And she's like, let me tell you something. This ain't going to work. So those shoes aren't going anywhere. So she kind of, luckily, me and her were a great balance of, she adopted a little bit of me and I adopted a little bit of her, and now we were good. And so we found this perfect balance. I'd loosened up a little bit. She had tightened up a little bit. And then we have kids. And, because you've got an army of them. That changed everything. And now it's just kind of like, yeah, just let it go. So we just do, enough. So, but work-life balance, that's what I tell a lot of these young kids who want to know about business. Everybody's got this desire to be an entrepreneur or whatever. I say, man, it's not for everybody. Kind of like me and you weren't designed to be NFL football players. Like we all have a plan. Some people were cut to be business leaders. Some weren't. I envy some of my friends who punch a time clock from 8 to 4 or whatever, and they go home with not a care in the world, and they're great dads, much better dads than me outside looking in, and that's hard. There's been times before where my kids have a game on Saturday morning. Well, I have a gig on Friday in Charleston and Saturday in Beaufort or whatever. And I've driven to, work till the bitter end of the day to just barely get a shower, to get in the car, rush to play a gig, and then drive home, literally drive to Charleston from 4 to 7, play a gig till 11, come home at 1 a.m., go to a kid's game that next morning so I don't miss it, to turn around and go right back to the coast that night. So trying to, and that's a grind. And then 100%. You come home Sunday and you can't interact with your family because you're so tired, you're so spent. So just having, you can control that by not having that go on, but music to me is the fun thing.
Yeah, but that's what, it's driven personalities. My wife tells people all the time, like, she always talks about like the get up and go guy married the ease into the morning woman.
Yep.
And she's like he has, like, because we joked at the end of last year, I was like, hey, 2025, I'm gonna kind of like, I'm going to refocus some stuff. Like I'm moving out of day-to-day business stuff. So like 2025, I'm going to take at least 6 months and like clear my schedule, get some new habits of like how I can be more involved with this and that. And, like literally leading all the way up into December is like, this is what's happening. I was telling my assistant, like, hey, life's going to look different. Like you'll be working from home some, we're going to be here. Like, and like, and all that changed with an opportunity with this farm. Like I bought this farm, and now my life is running 9,000 miles an hour. I'm up at 4:30 in the morning, just pacing around. And Hannah's like, "We just go, like,
yeah."
Like I can't live that way. I'll meet you at the farm at like 9:30 or something after I get the kids taken care of and stuff like that, and we can start working on some stuff. But like literally, I'm constantly doing something, because I love it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people see that hustle and they're like, well, that's what it takes. And then they're super unhappy doing it. You're not meant for it. And so finding that, and I tell people all the time, a good buddy of mine, Chase Frost, told me one time, he said, there's no such thing as a work-life balance. There's work-life harmony.
Yeah.
And so if you can create harmony where your wife's like, he's doing all this, and I'm sure she's running stuff and doing things like, like, but you're doing all this through the week, and you are super passionate about music, and you got a cool thing going on Fridays and Saturdays down there, and you still make a priority to be here as dad.
Yep.
And like, it works because she's not going to tell you to stop doing it, because she sees what you're passionate about, and we manage all this other stuff. And I'm very blunt with people. Like, I got some cousins and friends of friends that'll come in and say something about starting business, and I say, I'll just be honest, man, just talking to you, that ain't what you need to do.
Not what you need to
That's
do.
not what you need to do at all. Like, and if you want to test it, keep your job.
Yep.
And grow something on the side. And if you're willing to punch out at 5 and then pick this up at 5:01 and run it to 1 o'clock in the morning, and you can get it to surpass this income, then you're ready to jump. Just know you're not going to get free time. Now you're going to have to do this thing all that time to continue to grow it, because you don't really have a business until you have an employee. And when you have an employee, you got a whole new set of responsibilities. And you try to manage that, and you're young and you're engaged, you're going to get married. Like, that you got to figure out what you want. And my conversation is always, if you could tell me what you want and why you want it, then I can help you figure out how to get it. But if you don't know what you want, that's a big problem. And if you don't know why, right? Like, what's the difference? Some people come into it for all these things, and you and I've had conversations going back. Like, you had profound conversations with me in different seasons of my life. I remember one time talking about income. You're like, dude, I don't need. I'm reinvesting X. I pay myself this, and I'm pushing money back in, and because of that, this happens. This. I remember those conversations, and it's true. People don't realize it. Like, it's a massive sacrifice to look at an enterprise and know what goes on behind it and what it takes to orchestrate that to make it work. And you're literally betting the house, risking everything all the time. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
It doesn't, yeah.
And you got to have the same energy.
You see businesses, and I've really tried to stay small. What y'all have done is extremely impressive to me, because I'm like, man, the guts it would take just to get that big that quick. You're kind of a personality that's more geared for that than me. Yeah. I would be sitting on eggshells going, "Ooh, this monster's growing too quick." And you see, and that can be a problem at times, but it can be a huge blessing. I've got a very successful brother who's got just a banging business on the next level above mine. A brother-in-law's same way. And with those guys, I think a lot of people, make a joke with a lot of young people, look at them. They're not much older than me. They're 4 years older than me, and we're way ahead of where I was when they were 43.
Yeah.
Financially or business wise. And, I look at them and think, one common denominator in all these cats, and you take other successful people around town, Ray Brown, Joe Vaughn, people like that, and that's just naming some Woodruff cats.
Yep.
They are all working. I saw, prime example, Joe Vaughn's one of these guys that when all the trucks are parked and everybody's at home, he gets back on a tractor. It's like, what are you doing? We got to get this done. It ain't going to do itself. Or Ray Brown's 85 years old, one of the most successful business guys to ever come through Woodruff. Go in Country Meat Center, and he'll be running around there like a 19-year-old on, hopped up on Adderall. And it's just like, what are you doing, Ray? Like, you don't have to. And it's just how people like that are geared. And again, my brother and brother-in-law, they don't have to do. I'd say, most of those guys could probably formally retire right now before they're 50 years old and still do what they wanted to do. And they're still first ones there, last ones to leave, sitting at a Christmas dinner with these guys, and they're in the septic business, and it's nothing for both of them to get up and walk out and go jump in a pumper truck on Christmas Day. That's not, so, a lot of people aren't geared for that. They're like, I'm not doing that. Well, it's like, you become, it's hard when you do kind of become I don't know, you become bound by it at times, which is not cool. And I'm sure you feel that way at times. It's like you said, about Forevermore, and how that's ramped everything up. So every time my secretary makes a joke, she's like, I always say, I'm about to slow down. I said, when I turned 40, I was slowing down and I feel like I hit the gas, and she's like, your problem isn't like you'll diminish something, then you always replace it with something else. You can't just keep replacing. Yeah. But it's just how you're geared. I grew up in a family that had grandparents that were like that, and my parents were like that. We didn't chill. Yep. We didn't, my wife's on the other hand, she's one that's like, just chill. You don't have to plan something today. And I'm like, I tell people, my buddies that say, I couldn't do what you do because I have anxiety. I say, I have anxiety as bad as you do. I have a lot of anxiety every day. And I said, you know what cures my anxiety more than anything? Going to work. Oh. and getting something done, and that's not for everybody. It's not, my comfort is looking back at the end of the day and going, yeah, I got it done today. And then the hard part when you get in a position like where you're at business wise, I'm sure there's days where y'all might run for 12 hours and you go, man, the day was busy, but what did we do? We got
100%.
nowhere. You just feel like you're just kind of treading water. So, that's just the business, running business and all that isn't for everybody.
No.
I envy people that don't. And I tell people that ask me, I say, what I'd focus on is being a great husband and being a great dad, because those two things will bring you way more joy than any amount of money
In the world.
And so, trying to keep that in focus is hard to do. I mean, my wife has to sometimes say, really? There's Sunday mornings I've gotten up before and I look over and it's 6 a.m. and I go, I could go get that dumpster right now. And I go get a dumpster and deliver another one and come back home, park the truck at the shop, get back home and crawl back in bed before she even opens her eyes, And so I kind of try to strategically do a lot of that extra.
Well, dude, everything you say tracks, and the biggest thing is this: is like it is a grind, it's a hustle, and it takes a special person. But dude, I appreciate you coming on here and spending some time talking about stuff, laying down some guidelines of landscaping, and then talking about the hustle. Because we got a lot of business owners that watch this too. But it's good to catch up with you, man. I appreciate you.
Yeah, man, you too. Thanks for having me. And y'all's company's impressive, and glad it's going good. Maybe we'll build a Barndo soon.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.